Okay, starting stream. 3, 2, 1, and we are live. Okay, so just a second. Anything else I need to do before I get started? I think that's a no. Oh, no, just double check that the actual page works and is legible. Yeah, we're good. Okay, so welcome back. This is now the second part in a series of live streams where I am rebuilding the dashboard of WaniKani using Tailwind CSS. You might be interested to know I've deployed the code that I wrote last week to GitHub, so if you want to check it out, this is where you can. Just bear with me a second, I'm going to check. Oh, this is where you can see my screen, and I believe that should be visible. Yeah, it is. Okay, so yeah, if you want to check it out there, I will put a link in when this goes to, if it becomes like an archived stream rather than a current one, I'll put a link in the notes as well, so you can check it out there. But if that's something that you're interested in, it is now available to you. So where do we start? I'll just bring up the state of last week. Dev. Okay, so we were building out the navbar, and we've gotten so far as to build the navbar section itself and one of these little items. Now, just to give you a reference of what it looks like on the real thing. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4 of these hollow ones, and then 2 of filled ones, and then a couple of special ones. So what I was thinking we should do is build out these filled circle icons, then do the special ones, then sort of start duplicating them, and then maybe sort of like turn them into a reusable component rather than having them all be just loads of utilities stacked together. I am going to start off with the I'm going to call them something other than filled, I think. What would be a good name? And I actually clicked through then. Container, title, lessons. Okay, I'm not sure if that tour. Okay, so these don't have a set name in as far as the like the structure here is concerned. They just use sort of like a bunch of nested selectors for them. So we're going to turn them more into an actual named component, I think, at some point. But for now, if we just get into the code. Okay, so it's in dashboard.display.php, and we got the start of our navbar here. So I'm going to start off, that's the wrong thing. I'm going to start off by just duplicating the item that we have. And if we go and check what it now looks like, we should have 2, which we do. So we actually need a bit of spacing between them. And this isn't necessarily the most required thing at the moment. You know, it's not the most required thing at the moment. I was going to do it, but I'm not going to. So let's do... Alright, so 31 lessons is what I currently have available. And ditch this. And if we refresh... Yeah, 31 lessons. And I'm just going to double check what we actually have going on inside here. I have a feeling we lose the inner gradient. Not the inner gradient, what am I talking about? We lose the shadow on the inside. Do we lose the Do we lose both the shadows? Right, just remind myself what's going on here. Right, so yeah, these ones have a box shadow, and these ones don't, but they do have a gradient on the inside. So let's just remove the shadow, navbar shadow circle. Okay. And so background color, radial gradient. Alright, so this calls for us to create our own utility class, really, because we can't create something with the background image within the current Tailwind config. So let's open up main.css. So we've got this background texture already, so I'm just going to call this background BG radial gradient gray for now. Assuming we don't have, I don't think we're ever going to use any other radial gradients, but it's worth giving it a try. So background. So do we have it? So this just uses a bunch of browser specific versions, and then failing that, it falls back on a background color. I'm going to see what the current state of affairs is. So obviously we don't actually have to worry about browser support because this is never going to be a real project, but if you did, you'd possibly have to think about this. Although using Tailwind, I believe that post CSS will add any alternate versions that you need to the project. Right, so it should just be background image radial gradient, circle at center. Okay, circle at center, red 0, blue, green 100%. So if I copy this, including the R, circle at center, and then so we can get rid of the blue. And what is this doing? Circle at center. Circle B3, 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 999. Okay. Do we have any of these grays? I have a suspicion that the answer is no. So grey dark is 999, and we don't have the B3B. Alright, I'm not gonna. I was thinking about pulling them in from the configuration, but I don't think I'm gonna bother with that at the moment. So B3, 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 and then 0, and then just pop this class on there. Here. Okay, what does that do for us? No, so it's not doing it. It's not doing anything yet because I'm not actually compiling anything. Watch. And if you were paying attention, I just pasted the rule in without. I just pasted the radial gradient in without actually giving it background image. So background image. Alright, so that compiled successfully. Is it working for us? No. But it is if I do a hard refresh. So that is working just fine. But we now need to make the text white, which is no problem whatsoever. So text. Alright, so I think we stuck the text color on here. Yeah, text white. Yeah, of course we stuck it on there as it is a link. Alright, so now we make the text white on the span, and also on the text. So maybe I don't do it there. So T. And there we go. So I believe that's all we need for now. We're going to have to come back to all of them to add hover effects anyway. But that is good. So the next one, if we focus on getting the logo version as well. Just do a copy of this. Right, so we don't have any text in the middle, so get rid of this for now, and replace the word lessons. So I could do it the lazy way and copy and paste it, but I will actually type it. WaniKani. Right, there we go. Right, so I'm not expecting this to look very good because I've not done anything except for adjust the text. And lo and behold, I am right. Alright. So there's a few things going on here. First of all, we have this hot pink in the background color. So if I remove the BG radial gradient gray and then go into our configuration, obviously these colors are all predefined and it's kind of up to you to decide what you want to go with. I don't think we've got any other pinks except for maybe a darker one. There's a hover state on certain things. I might even be wrong about that. Yeah, I think I might be. I think we only have this one pink, so I could afford to call this pink and ditch all the other ones. Interesting. So brand. Yeah, I highlighted this in the last stream as something that I'd not encountered before. I think I see what they're doing there. It's kind of defining named colors. So sort of like if you wanted to rather than referring to something as being pink in your class name, you can have it. You can refer to like a brand darkest, brand lighter, and sort of like have it return whatever your brand color scheme is. That's interesting. I used to do something similar back when I worked with Bootstrap quite a bit. I was not a fan of, like, a colleague of mine used to create classes that were like brand primary, brand secondary, and then assign them straight to a hex code. And I'd come into his projects a bit later and go, okay, so we've got a blue and a pink here, but which one's which? Which is primary, which is secondary? Because neither is particularly the dominant color. So I prefer to have named colors that describe what color they are in some sort of variable or setting, and then define semantic colors if necessary within sort of another variable or another sort of approach to naming it. In fact, I don't even entirely love the sort of like primary secondary thing, because I can't see an instance where your primary color is going to change without affecting a load of other things and having it be sort of like, well, great, well, we're rebuilding the site anyway now because we've changed our branding. So this is done, and so if we do BG pink, I am looking at the wrong thing. Alright, so we've got this pink background now, but we want to lose the border. So border 4 and border grey dark are going away. Alright, so that's a start. So I think we've got 2 more things we need to sort out. The first is that we need this logo to be, oh no, logo, the icon to be in place. And the second is we need this little inner shadow. So I'm going to start off with this, the icon. Just copy it over into our project. Open a new tab. Alright. Right. Are we in? Yeah, we are. So I've just called this WK icon. So I'm putting it in as an image tag. I've just realised that they use it as a background image. I am going to do the same actually. Alright, so let's see what this does. Like, hopefully this will stack. Alternative. Okay, yeah, so it does stack. And what are they doing with this background sizing? Background size contain. So BG contain, I think. I'm fairly certain that's what the utility is called, but I'm just going to take a punt on it, and if that fails, we'll just have to look it up. But no, we're good. All right. So last thing for now is to get the shadow in place. Which shadow is that? Right. I think what I'm going to do is just compare this to the shadow I've got set up in Tailwind config. Shadow. So navbar circle is 1 pixel, white, insert -2. Alright, so it's the same shadow. Good. Well, we can just reuse that class then. So, shadow navbar circle. And we're good. Woohoo! Right, so that's that in place. Next, we need this. Let's call it the avatar. And I guess it's so it uses Gravatar as background image, and then it does more or less the same thing. So what I am going to do is copy this to the end. Right. Interesting. So they're using a gravatar as the background image, and because that is set on a per user basis, that is just output as being a part of the style attribute of that span. Since I don't have to care about that, I'm just going to create a utility class for it. So bg my avatar, my gravatar, because it literally is me. Background image URL. Alright. There's a bunch of things going on in this, but I'm just straight up not going to care at the moment. This will do. Just straight up hard coding it. Menu PQ. Right, and then watch me organize my backgrounds in alphabetical order, because that's the sort of thing I do. Right, so I think I'm just sticking a semicolon on the end. So that is good. Alright, assuming that there's no changes to how the shadow functions, we might be good with... interesting. Okay. Huh. So the gravatar that they're referring to here isn't actually my one. Okay, interesting. This is a default icon for if you haven't set a gravatar that specific to WaniKani. So I think we're actually good. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know whether I've like entered something incorrectly, but I think we're happier with this than we are with me. So let's stick with this. And menu. Just bring in our downward facing chevron, which we haven't shrunk yet, and we're not going to today either, I don't think. Alright, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different styles of navbar item, and what are we going to do now? So we have the choice between getting them appropriately spaced and extracting them into a component. I think I'm gonna extract these two into components, I think. So what to call them? Right. So here you would add any of your custom component classes, stuff that you'd want loaded before the utility so that the utilities could still override them. I think this is the right place. Like, yeah, I am going to include it here. So navbar circle. And right, so what I think we might do is for this, we'll treat this one as being the default item, And so if we call this navbar item, navbar circle, and navbar chevron. Yeah, we're not going to worry about the chevron, I think. Keep this as it is. It's not that much. It's not going to change. But navbar item and navbar circle. So navbar item, we want to apply these. Alright, and with any luck, nothing has changed. And that is true. And just inspect this, make sure it's not doing what it needs to do. Yes, the navbar item has what it needs. Navbar circle needs all of this. Right, so I haven't actually taken the time to explain what it is that I'm doing. So this apply rule basically takes a list of classes, as you can see, .block, .no underline, .py5, and so on. These are all utilities that we've copied over. If you add @apply and then list some classes, it will basically say to use the styles that are assigned to those classes. So as long as those classes have been set up, rather than redefining all of the rules yourself, it just tells it to sort of like use those. And then once you're done, if you wanted to change anything else, you could just do sort of like so. Height 3 pixels for some reason. Border color. So on, and that will then apply these and then apply any of your own sort of custom styles. We don't want these at the moment, so if we stick to the versions that I have brought in, and then we can afford to lose everything except for navbar circle. And let's see what this is. Let's see what this is doing. Yeah, we're good. Alright, so for the filled circle, alright, to begin with, I can call this navbar item, and nothing should change. Yep, nothing changes. And then we need this additional background circle. So what I think I might do is create a background circle filled. Or navbar circle filled. Borrowing the modifier from like BEM style CSS, which is like block element modifier. We're not really applying that because we don't have that formula structure here. We're using sort of like one or two components. But I like being able to separate like what is the name of my actual component and what is a state of it. Now I don't know why I'm copying all of this over. What I was going to do is like have it so you apply navbar circle and then we override it with filled. So BG grey, radial gradient grey, we need. Border 4, we don't. Border grey dark, we don't. Ah, interesting. I put block on one and I didn't on another. Don't know if that was a mistake. Just pop block in here. I could just apply navbar circle and then do overrides, but I think I won't. Just gonna let that be composed on the HTML. So background radial gradient grey. We need. So the only other thing we need is to get rid of the shadow. Right, do we have a right, Tailwind CSS? Do we have some sort of shadow none class? No. Oh yeah, we do. Cool. So shadow none. Great. So if I get rid of all this, now let's see what happens. Alright, so the only other thing I missed was the text color. Text white. Yeah, we're good. Alright, so we've successfully extracted these two into components. So the only other one we need to worry ourselves with is these two, which are more or less the same thing but with different background images. Right, so have I done anything different with the actual link? I don't believe I have. So navbar item. Just test this out on the logo. Yeah, we're good. And again down here. Navbar item. And we're good. Alright, so yeah, if we copy this text over before we start removing some of it. So navbar circle background image. Alright, so border 0 or no border? Border widths. So 0, yeah, of course it's 0. Border 0. There's a few things where the syntax is sort of like no something or no something. So for instance, underline, no underline. But I guess that's the case. The things that are sort of like almost a Boolean state have that syntax, but things that have sort of like other options between does it exist or doesn't exist will use like 0 at the end rather than no something. Justify center, rounded full, circle, text white with. Right. So we don't even necessarily need to care about text white because we don't have any text. So, oh, BG contain we do need. BG contain. so if I get rid of these, all right, and then we just keep the my gravatar class. And let's see what this does now. Yeah, good. Okay, and no, not copying that. So we're doing the same on the logo, except we're using a different background. Oh no, we also want background pink to stay. We're good. Okay, so we've successfully turned this into a series of components rather than continuing to use just the stacked utility classes. This is one way of approaching it. Another way you could approach it, if the design of your project lends itself more to that than what I'm currently doing, is to extract it to a component elsewhere. So rather than giving it a class name, you might be using React, or you might be using Vue, or you might be using some sort of like Laravel's Blade syntax has the concept of components as well on a sort of like server-side generated components area. So if you're always going to be using something like that and they're going to have their own state, then it doesn't necessarily make sense to both create the abstraction of a component within CSS and also create it in the within either your JavaScript or your HTML, because it's sort of like it's just doubling up on the work of it. And if it makes sense to keep all these classes in the same place, if you're only ever going to be changing it in that one place, then maybe that'd be a decision that you would make for your project. But since we don't have that going on for this project, I decided that this was the simplest way of approaching it. So what do we do next? I talked about getting the spacing right. So let's have a look at what's going on here. Alright, so I think the first thing that we will need is to get everything sort of like nicely contained. We have navbar inner, and then we have container. So 1170 is the default here. I think they're just, yeah, they're using Bootstrap, aren't they? This is totally Bootstrap. So we should create our own container, which is very simple. Can't remember whether it's the same size. I have a suspicion it's not, but do what we can and then see what happens. So div class equals container, and then you'll have to stick this MX auto on here just to make it centered. Let's see what happens. Close enough. What actually is it? Okay, so our container is 30 pixels wider. I don't think we're going to care about that. Okay, so what's next? Okay, interesting. So we have a few different things going on in terms of like how spacing is achieved here. I'm just trying to figure out which ones we need to care about. So these have some spacing, and they have spacing because they have an active state on them. These have different... Okay. Alright, so I'm going to sort the simplest thing to sort, which is to float this, or not float it, but align this last item over to the other side of the screen. Right, so class. I believe this is the right one to use. No. Right. Right. So I just disable my notifications. I don't know why I keep refreshing this as if something's going to change. Right, so to add, so should this be working, or am I missing something? Self-end. Would putting item start on here changing? I'm assuming this is the default, so I don't know whether it would. No. What on earth am I missing here? Right, so much for this being the simplest of the things. Okay, so seriously though, what am I missing here? Another question I have for myself is why does our span have a little bit of padding that the other ones don't? Padding margin. Okay. justify. So justify between. So if I remove this for now, I want to see what happens if I just. Alright, this should probably be how the default works. No. Okay, so I'm curious as to why this margin exists. Don't know. Line height. Alright, what happens if I were to just put margin 0? Oh, it's because of the size of the text, right? Okay, so what we actually want is given. And that's probably why I made it block as well. Okay, so if I do that, it will at least center it. And it does. Okay, so that doesn't solve the problem we're looking to solve, though. That just solves why that was there and something. Okay, so let's Google this thing. So what happens if I change that to end? Okay, that's simpler. Yes! Well, that's that sorted. Okay, so all I did was gave it left margin auto, and that pushed it all the way up. Good. Right, so now let's get some more padding on it. Right, so what padding do these things have? So the span has margin left auto, margin right auto. So it's auto. So this maybe has width. Okay, so the containing list item does have a width. So each of these does have its own width. Okay, so 8.2 m seems to be the standard, and then most other things have something else. So no, not most other things. So 8.2 m is the standard for all of these, as is this, and then the original one is smaller. Okay, so it's 8.2 m in their case, which is 114.8 pixels. 114.8 divided by 16. So in our case, it works out to roughly 7.1 m. Okay, so width. Right, we don't have. I'm going to make this 7. No, of course, no, I'm being silly. Alright, I was thinking of like our scale of sizes, which is not what we want. We want the actual rem value. So we also don't have a 7, so 24, 5, 6, 7, 28. Right, so if I had a width 28, and I'm just going to go ahead and pop these straight on the class on the list item. I think we're okay to leave them on here because all they're doing is defining spacing. We've not stacked up so many classes, so I think I am happy with them staying on here. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So why do we have so much? Oh yeah, we have so much space here because I haven't set this one yet. Okay, so and then this one wants basically half of that. So do we have a 14? Yeah, we do. Alright, and the only other thing we need to worry about for this is it will be, since it's got MX Auto on it, we will have it centered within its area, which we don't want. To be fair, it doesn't matter. We've got this W14 and is the width of it. So that's fine. Yeah, we're good. So what is next? Alright, I think the next thing I'm going to do is actually start reproducing some of these. So copy this. Right. So reviews. Radicals, kanji, vocab. Yay! Okay. I think that's more or less everything we care about at the moment. The only other thing I might do is some of these things have a bit extra spacing. So here we don't. No, what something has margin. Margin right 2.2. So what does the margin actually work out as? Margin right 30 pixels, so 30.8. So it's roughly about 2. So if I give this MR8. Yep. Okay. What else? R8, MR something. Right, so the only other one I'm aware of is that reviews is kind of spaced a bit further apart from levels. Where have they given that? What are they? Alright, so we actually have 2 different lists here, which is a way of doing it. I'm not going to do it that way because I don't care about whatever reasons that there are reasons for this, and it's probably got something to do with what happens when it drops down to smaller screen sizes. To be fair, we haven't taken mobile or anything into account, but for now I think what I'm going to do is just give it to the list item. So computed margin right, margin right 10 pixels. So 10. So 0.625. I think we'll just make that 0.75. So that's MR3. Yeah, so we have achieved our general layout. What we are missing from this area is any kind of interactivity. So, like, as you will have seen as I've interacted with different things, these all have drop-down menus. These have, or this one has, like, a little label that pops up to say available now. Obviously, the account menu has all sorts of options. And we have hover states on things. I think, in the interests of getting more page content in, I think I'm going to actually leave that for now. I think I'm going to take another pass once we've got all of this stuff in there and do all those sorts of elements. Ooh, interesting. Also, which I never actually picked up on before, the fact that we have a scrolled state for this as well. all of that I think we are going to leave for a point in the future. So for the next stream, which will probably end up being quite a short one if I move on to the search bar and get that built. Alright, well thank you for watching and see you next time. Don't forget to like, make a comment if you would like to, subscribe, check me out on Twitter at JamesO'Neill83, send me a letter if you'd like to, if you can get my address from anywhere. Yeah, you get the general idea. Alright, well, thanks for watching. Goodbye. Where did I put the